Hello everyone, it's Oliver Harper here, and I'm back with Rob Hill to continue the Terminator commentaries, this time on Genisys. Now Rob, you watched it recently?
I did.
But had no memory of seeing it before.
I did not.
Is it that forgettable, do you think?
It is.
So I don't know Rob's personal opinion on this film, so I'm kind of excited to see what he's going to say throughout this podcast. He may surprise all of you and quite like large chunks of it, or he may detest it like a large chunk of the Terminator fans. But anyway, you can enjoy this podcast by itself, but you can sync it with your own copy of the film, either on Blu-ray, NTSC DVD. I believe it's on streaming on Paramount Plus or Amazon Prime, I believe. Put the timestamp to 0 and press play now. So, Terminator Salvation didn't go down as well as everyone hoped. It made some money, but not enough I think that the Halcyon company had financial issues. So the Terminator franchise, the IP was going to sold off, and Skydance had purchased it in conjunction with Paramount Pictures. So we get a new kind of reboot of the Terminator franchise, and with their mindset was, let's make a new trilogy. And going out with that idea, that mentality was like, we're going to make a trilogy because we know this one's going to be a success. So we can, anything we don't need to explain, we can explain in the sequel. But obviously, there was no sequel to this with this new intended franchise. So yeah, it sort of introduces a lot of kind of plot holes, and you can kind of get a sense there's a lot of rewrites throughout, so a lot of exposition and things don't really make much sense. So we sort of have a retread of, things before Judgment Day with Jai Courtney, who is horrendously miscast as Carl Reese.
Yes, yeah, that's a good point. Although, at the end of the day, I don't think you're allowed to say that movies involving time travel have plot holes anymore, because it's just time travel. Different timelines, that explains everything.
Of course. That's your get out of jail free card, though, isn't it?
Yeah, if they want to change something, if they can't be bothered to do their research, or if they're just lazy writers and don't want to find clever solutions to obvious problems, they can just say, different timeline.
Now, obviously, Arnold wasn't in Terminator 4 only as a sort of cameo, as a sort of CG representation of him, just for a little bit near the end, where Christian Bale has to battle him and then sets him on fire and blows his skin off, as we sort of explored in the last commentary. But Arnold's back in this one, and they have a legitimate excuse as to why he looks old, because he gets away with it. They get away with it generally.
I think that I am completely happy with that explanation. I like that. I think it makes total sense. It makes reasonable sense. It does raise the whole issue. When we learn that he can completely regenerate skin later in the movie, that does then raise the question, well, if you have normal human skin that ages normally, how can it also totally regenerate when it's been literally burnt off by acid? But that's fine. I really like the idea of bringing him back and giving you that explanation and just making the most of him, just having him around for the sake of it.
Yeah, for sure. And we see this intro here is trying to key in the sort of visual elements we saw in James Cameron's Future, right? And San Francisco, all destroyed. And it's kind of Carl Reese, obviously he grew up in this kind of world, and we see him as a child kind of get found by John Connor. It's always kind of interesting when they show you all the endoskeletons, and I always thought they were the new thing that was introduced in the Terminator, because they had the really bad ones, the kind of dodgy skin, which you see in a minute. You see like an early prototype where he's as this kind of bald guy trying to kill Carl Reese in that sort of sewer tunnel.
Which is our first adaptation of the timeline, in fact, because of course this isn't how John Connor and Carl Reese meet, or wasn't how.
Wasn't it? No, it was just like they didn't know each other, did they? And then he just kind of volunteered.
Their meeting is explained in one of the first two movies. I forget which now. And it's, oh goodness, I've even forgotten what it is. Doesn't John Connor rescue him from like an internment camp or something like that?
Yes.
But there is an explanation given, and it isn't what we see now. But
I always thought it was kind of Carl Reese kind of generalising that he kind of freed everyone, from this camp. But you're probably right in that regard.
Yeah, it's, but whether or not they wanted to do this because this is more cinematic or easier to do or whatever, or whether it really is just different timeline, it's not hugely important at the end of the day.
But I am happy they've got the laser guns back.
Yep.
You need laser guns in the future.
You do, and it's nice. And to be honest, I'm not a big fan of the opening we've just had, because it's. I was sitting there watching it the other night, and like you said, I don't know if I even did see this. I'm sure I did, but I had no memory of it whatsoever going back to it. And as I mentioned, I do watch a lot of movies like this. If I'm on a project involving something like this, I could be watching half a dozen of these things a day. So it does kind of go in one eye and out of the other. But that whole opening sequence is just like, it's just ones and zeros, just nothing but ones and zeros. It's all so digital and not, I don't know.
Well, this whole opening sequence where we're going to see them, take on the base, and you got these kind of robots jumping around. I'm looking at it, thinking to myself, this is a video game. But also, it is like they just shot it on a car park and put some like barriers up to create these sectioned off pieces where they free some people. It's like it's not taking place in this destroyed city kind of landscape, which you kind of see just in like extended digital map paintings. And then we've got these kind of corridor sequences where they're in the sewers, which is kind of just like, okay, that's fine. That fits within that sort of future we saw in Cameron's 1 and 2. But it was always kind of piecemeal, wasn't it? So what we're seeing here is just kind of like stuff you got this kind of sectioned off area where they're operating. It's like a video game. It's like something you'd see in a Terminator computer game. And we see the time displacement unit, which is, I think, visually kind of works for me when you see it a little bit more detail in the next 5 to 10 minutes.
Yeah, I think it's fine. I mean, whatever. It's a big spinny digital thing. But yeah, what you say about how sort of contained everything is and how none of those scenes are. I watched the making of that's on YouTube. Which is a really weird experience because they've obviously had to cut out all the clips from the movie because of copyright. I couldn't work out. It kept jumping for the first few minutes. Someone would be halfway through a sentence, and then it would just jump to something else. And I thought, oh, of course, yeah, they've probably had to cut the actual film footage out every time they cut to that. And you really do notice how just everything was shot against a green screen. Almost every scene, the time displacement machine thing, that big chamber. None of it's real. Even the Griffiths Observatory stuff, which I thought as I was watching it, I was thinking, this looks like a set somewhere. It doesn't quite look real somehow. And then you see the making of, and it's just a car park in New Orleans, and everything is against a green screen. I mean, it's only down the road from where the studio's based. Can't you just spend a couple of days shooting there?
It's that mentality now. It's like, well, we don't want the risk of shooting location. We do green screen. We can change stuff at the last minute.
Yeah. I think if anything, I reckon that probably happens less now. I think there's been a little bit of not a backlash, but a little bit of a backtrack on that. This is a really mid 20-teens movie to my mind. That whole, I mean, the fact that it's blue for one thing, or cyan for one thing, the fact that everything is shot on a green screen. And the whole time travel timeline thing, I think, was popular then as well. It seems really of its time in a not in a good way, but not in a terrible way.
It feels like they're taking cues from Marvel with this. It doesn't feel like the tone of it is more Marvel with its kind of comedy quips and stuff, where there was kind of comedy elements in T2, but it's just kind of done for Arnold reacting to stuff as he's learning and interacting with Ed Furlong. But in this, it's like you've got action quips, like you'd see in an Arnold movie where he's not the Terminator.
Exactly.
And it feels out of place.
I have a really big problem with that, actually, because it's not... The reason that those funny bits work in Terminator 2, and in fact, a lot of them were cut, weren't they? Because the most famous sort of funny bit almost isn't even in the original T2, I don't think, when Ed Furlong's teaching Arnold how to smile.
Yeah, that's cut out. Yeah.
But the reason moments like that work is because the character is established as not being like that. The character is established as completely straight and humourless. And he is like that in most of T2. There are just the odd moment here and there, and that's what makes them work. When his whole character, basically, is a joke, like he is in this, I mean, you don't call the Terminator Pops. You just don't. That's not... If you're going to give him a character name, it's not Pops. Okay, he's a fucking killing machine. You don't do that. But in this, it's almost like his character is no longer what it was. It's just a parody of what it was.
We think we may have explored in come T3, where it was just becoming... It wasn't the Terminator anymore. It was more like Arnold pushing for more of the comedy, which was coming essentially parodying, the original version.
Because he loved that. I mean, that's Arnold has said in interviews that's his favourite thing about the Terminator is the funny stuff, which I'm not sure he quite grasps the nature of the character in that case. But yeah, Terminator 3 was where this whole generic thing sort of started to come in. Terminator, I think Salvation backtracked on that a little bit. And although I'm not a huge fan of that film, it is at least unique. It does at least have a distinct tone, like the first two movies do. And then the third one is just kind of like a generic example of action movie of the time. And then the fourth one tried to do something different, didn't really work. And then this one is back to generic action movie of the time. It's a different time to Terminator 3, so it's a different movie. But like you say, the Marvel influence and so on, it just gives it this incredibly generic feel, which I don't, it's not necessarily a criticism. I probably enjoyed this a lot more than I'm giving the impression. But it's a wasted opportunity, and it's not, it doesn't feel like Terminator. It doesn't feel like it should somehow.
There's Salvation took itself extremely seriously, where this one, as we've kind of highlighted, goes that Marvel way of giving you a lot of action with a bit of a balance of comedy and adventure, to it. And as we see here, I was watching it last night. My girlfriend goes, "Why didn't they just use the original footage? What's going on?" And I said, "Well, clearly a license issue. So they've just got to basically do everything shot for shot, remake of this stuff." And the guy going, "What the hell?" And he gets out of the thing at the timings kind of generally quite good, and the electricity, they try to copy it perfectly, very chunky, that Fantasy 2 effects. But once Arnold kind of steps up, he stands up in front of the camera, it just doesn't look real. Even when I saw it, theatrically, I was just like, that's not really good CG.
Yeah, this shot here of him standing up and the camera moving in on him,
I think it looks too thin as well. They've got the proportions. He's also a lot wider in the theatrical.
But if you again in this making of documentary, there's footage of the two senior producers in an edit bay, and they're talking about like how do you make this character look more like Arnold, and it's just like this 25-year-old producer's just sitting there going, yeah, I think his face needs to be a bit thinner, so they make the face a bit thinner. And it's like, that's not how you do this. You can't just some cock knocker who's got no idea what he's talking about just pulling stuff out of his arse going, yeah, I think it should be like, no. But they did find a guy with a very similar physique, didn't they? Apparently his measurements were almost identical, so the body double is fine. But then they slather it with CG anyway, and then probably just adapt it to how they think it should look, regardless of the fact he started off with exactly the same measurements.
The design here of the time displacement unit, it makes sense in a way, because it shows you it's created by an AI. It's not designed for a human to interact with. You know what I mean? Kind of walking up, it seems like really cumbersome to get to, and like Cameron's one, there's storyboards or concept art from T2, which I think he was going to show you some of it originally in the storyboards, but he never did, like never shot it. So it's kind of the time travel machine was this kind of like, looked like an atom They're sort of, you look like an atom or a proton, and they're sort of, they're sort of just circles, just sort of spin around and send you into the past. This kind of has something like that, but it was more like what you see in Cameron's is very really cold metallic design, but it's not too far from this kind of concept.
Yeah, I don't mind the design. I mean, I don't think it's crucial really, but the this is where the plot holes or the lazy writing starts to sort of throw up problems for me, because again, if it's all really good, you're not thinking about these things. But like you say, this is designed by AI to be used by its machine. There's no reason why humans should have any idea. Within 5 minutes of them entering this room, they've figured out what it is, how it works, that you can't send metal back in it, that you like, how do they know that?
Well, that's all from John Connor, from what he's been told, because Carl Reed said passed it on to his mother. You can't send through people with clothes. Whatever.
If so, then it should be John Connor telling people this, not the woman who's just started looking at the computer console that there's absolutely no reason for there to be in the first place. Why does there need to be a manual QWERTY keyboard or whatever? It might not be, but do you know what I mean? Just an interface that a human can make head or tail of makes no sense. But also, I don't want to get into this one so early, but at some point you need to explain to me how Reese knows this stuff in the first place, because I can't figure it. Seems to be a loop with no start where this information originally comes from. Because John Connor says, I can't remember when it is, it might have been a minute ago, he's saying, like, this is where my knowledge ends, and of course it's because Kyle Reese told him all this stuff that Sarah told him all this stuff. But how does she know? Because how does Sarah Connor know anything that happens after, like, sort of T2 era, or after her life span? Because essentially what they're saying, as I understand it, is Kyle Reese went back in time and told her this stuff, and then she told John Connor so that he knew and could tell Kyle Reese. So how did they originally find out?
Oh, I don't know. That's a time loop, isn't it?
It's a time loop with no start, though. It doesn't. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, and also, it doesn't make sense anyway, because the kind of stuff that John Connor clearly knows, like strategic stuff, like where Skynet's weak points are, where their bases are, when they're going to attack, things like that. How could anyone ever know that? Where does that knowledge come from?
That doesn't make sense. But what's kind of implied in the first one is that they said, oh, Skynet was smashed, whatever. They went and they just threw Carl Reese through the time machine to basically, because the Terminator had gone through, and there was no kind of, it didn't imply there was any thought process. It was just like, just chase after.
Exactly, yeah.
It's all a last minute kind of thing to stop them.
But anyway, yeah, that's probably too.
And also, it's trying to tee up the idea. You can see Doctor Who in the background there, Matt Smith, isn't it? Yeah. So it's like we don't know who he is. He is, obviously, it's revealed that he is Skynet in his kind of human form. But it's just, I don't know. It's just there to set up something else. It doesn't really have any real payoff at all.
Any sense at all what Doctor Who does in this scene, for one thing. Skynet's entire plan seems to hinge on the idea that they need John Connor because he's such a genius. So they're going to... John Connor even says something later on about how, that they realised what they needed was me, or something like that.
Yeah.
Why? Why does this AI need a human? He's standing in that room there. He could just kill all of them. It's game over. It's all finished. Skynet's won. But instead, Skynet does this incredibly convoluted and risky plot for the sake of the movie, obviously. But just a bit more thought in the writing eliminates all these, whether they're plot holes or not. If I've misunderstood something here, it's still, I would argue, a problem, because if I've misunderstood it, then it could have been clearer.
The problem being is, as I mentioned very early on, is that they were setting this up to be a trilogy.
Mm.
So they've created all these little sodices to explain something to explain it more clearly later on. So at the moment they're setting everything up, and whatever payoff we might have had to go, oh, that makes sense, is never never comes to fruition. So it's just all this like,
Yeah.
A bit at the end with the end credits where you see something that's going to happen.
Yeah, you're right. I'll stop picking holes because this is the kind of nitpicking I don't really appreciate anyway. So I'll stop. I was just sitting there watching it, constantly thinking, why? Not failing to enjoy the movie, because I did really enjoy watching it. To be honest, I think I probably prefer. I would rather watch this movie than 3 or 4.
Really, that's interesting. Okay,
I'm not saying it's better, but I'd rather watch it. It's more enjoyable.
Because obviously they've thrown so many ideas into this film, because now Skynet's no longer a defense network for the military. It's become this social media platform, isn't it? An operating system.
Different timeline.
Yeah. There we go. I think they do a pretty good job of recreating 1984. I think the lighting and the sort of production design, I think they do it quite well. But what we are seeing is really just like the ultimate fan film. It's made by fans, isn't it?
Yeah.
And to a younger person seeing this, they'll probably think this is pretty fucking cool. But as an adult, if you grew up with all these, this is quite offensive.
You're right, and one pet hate of mine is critics. There are certain, even ones I love. Like I love red letter media, I really do. But I've got this bee in my bonnet about them. They go and watch movies made for kids, and then complain that they're made for kids. They're like, this wasn't made for us. This movie, so we have no right to feel offended by anything in it.
But on the flip side of that, it's showing you stuff that you should be familiar with. So would kids be familiar with this stuff? No, it's not. They wouldn't be. I don't think they would be. So they're kind of seeing this for the first time, going, "Oh, it's back in the 80s," but they wouldn't get it. Why it's kind of recreating stuff. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's a weird way to look at it. It has been designed for the fans, and it's for that age range, I think. But it ended up pissing them off.
Yeah, it's a strange combination of fan service and a reboot aimed at developing a new fan base.
Yeah. It's weird though. When he approaches the guys, obviously it was the original was like Bill Paxton and the bad guy from Cobra. It ends up looking like he's met Green Day or something.
It's strange, isn't it? And again, I know it's the timeline thing, but it seems slightly odd to me that everyone looks different because it's a different timeline. That makes sense. I guess it's going to be a little bit different, but then everyone looks different apart from Arnold. And I was sitting there thinking, does that make sense? If this is a different timeline, then would Skynet have created exactly the same T-800 and exactly the same? It's pointless thinking like that.
I don't mind the kind of the action here. I mean, it's modern action. It's good when they push against each other and the floor cracks. It's quite good little visual little moments there, like that. It's like watching two superheroes battle it out. And I love the gun she's got.
It's another Barrett M82. Ollie, it's the same gun from RoboCop.
Yeah.
Love this gun. Its presence does beg the question: why didn't she just shoot him the minute he appeared, like a Looper type situation? Why did they watch him kill some people and then fight for a bit and then kill him? But
I love that in Looper. Send him to the future. As soon as he appears in the future, boom!
Brilliant.
That shotgun. It's great.
There are several points in this where exactly that or something like that should have happened. Do you know what I mean? It's like later on when he's late to meet them. So you had 30 years to be there and you're late.
Now, this film apparently had a lot of problems when they were making it. It was a nightmare for the director. Alan Taylor, who was a TV director, did Mad Men, Sopranos, and I think another... Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones,
That's how you knew Emilia Clarke. And one of the guys, officers who he meets later on in the future, the guy looks a bit like Orson Welles. He was in Mad Men, hence why he's popped up in this. But Alan had directed Thor: The Dark World, which not a great Marvel movie. I think it's one of the weaker ones. But he said he'd gone into it with a lot of freedom to do what he wanted, but in post-production, that freedom was kind of taken away. So it became part of the Marvel machine. And with this, he was told not to do it, not to make this film, but he thought, okay, I'm going to try and add my own twist on it, improve the script, and have fun with the idea that we can go back in time and revisit these things, and the fans shouldn't be. I think he kind of thought the fans would kind of accept what he was going to do and not be so vocal, and that was kind of the opposite. And he had a nightmare with this film, and they obviously released it. The trailers spoilt the movie. He was furious about that. The whole subplot with John Connor.
I watched that trailer and I thought, what are they doing? How can you do that? But
yeah, absolutely mad. And he felt like quitting directing after this.
Yeah.
It was a nightmare. And Emilia Clarke said the whole shoot was difficult, and they never really sort of highlight what the key thing was for them personally.
No, I couldn't get to the bottom of that either. Yeah, everyone seems to have had a miserable time, but there's no obvious explanation as to why. Apparently they were shooting Fantastic Four in New Orleans at the same time, and the crew on the Fantastic Four shoot, which is notorious for having been a nightmare itself, the crew had jackets printed up saying, at least we're not working on Terminator, which... Yeah, why? What's the story there? Oh, there's the Night Vandals. Yeah,
I love those shoes. I think now this is combining T2 now with the new guy portraying the T1000. He's actually very good.
Lee Byung-hun, his name is. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I've seen him in a few things, and he's great. And I think he's absolutely fantastic in this. He's possibly the best thing in this, and horrendously underused.
And they do have fun with the T1000. They do make him create a spear, which is quite cool. And they do quite a clever trick. I think it's a good piece of direction when you see the silver mannequins. You think, oh, he's turned into one of those. But oh no, he's actually in the mirror, and he comes out of the mirror. I thought, oh, that's quite cool. Here we go. This scene here. It's a nice little trick. And the visual effect. It's just as good, even better than T2, because it's not for CG artists now. This is pretty simple stuff.
Yeah. I don't know if he studied Robert Patrick, particularly. Presumably he did, because it's not a coincidence, is it? But his physicality is just fantastic.
And they have a lot of fun with him dropping the liquid on stuff to trace them, and when he drives past and he picks it up with his hand, that's good little moment. But Jai Courtney, man, Jesus Christ, Carl Reese talks about how they were living off rats and stuff and eating hardly anything, and what we see is a roided up dude. When he walks like an action figure. You know what I mean? He's walking around holding his chest up. So, no. From a future where there's hardly any food.
He's a good actor. I've got absolutely nothing against Jai Courtney whatsoever. But yeah, he looks like he starts his day with a protein shake and a gym session, not scrabbling around for bits of rat meat to stay alive. But it's not just his physicality, I think, that's wrong. There's something that Christian Bale managed to pull this off actually in the fourth one. But in Michael Biehn in the first one, his eyes just tell you so much. He's got this wild look of desperation, like he's spent. He looks in his eyes. You can see that he's spent his entire life fighting for survival. And there's none of that with this version of Carl Reese.
There's no intensity at all.
No,
no. And it's like I've discussed with my friend Audie Surley when we've done a few commentaries on Van Damme. Van Damme's very good with his eyes acting, and that's what it kind of makes him work. These performances where he doesn't have any dialogue. Jai Courtney is just I don't know, it's like a character in a buddy cop movie sort of version of him. Emilia Clarke. She kind of looks a little bit like Linda Hamilton, but she's tiny. She's like
exactly.
She's so small.
Yeah, and
it's not I'm not going to criticise her just because of her height. That's not a nice thing to say. But it's but when you're seeing her with a gun, it's like watching a child with a gun.
Yeah, it's in context, isn't it? Yeah, it's not. Yeah, being shorter is not. To be honest, I think she's even more badly cast than he is. I think that she does good acting, if that makes sense. She is a good actress. I even kind of like her in this, but she's not Sarah Connor. And anyone objecting to that statement will say, well, yeah, but it's a different timeline, it's a different Sarah Connor. I understand that, but she doesn't work for me in this role at all.
And she's got heels on those boots.
So Burt Reynolds always used to say that, I think I might have mentioned this before, Burt Reynolds used to say the best piece of advice he was ever given was by Spencer Tracy, who just said, don't let them catch you acting. That's all you need to know. Don't let them catch you acting. And she's acting all the time. And she's not acting badly, but she's acting all the time because I think she's stretching so much. She's trying to play a role so far from what she should be playing that...
She's supposed to be playing this kind of angry, shouty woman a lot of the time, and she's in control,
She seems like she's from a sitcom or something. Do you know what I mean? And that's not her fault. That's the writing. But I mean, all of this stuff here now this isn't what This should be something intense. Deliver some exposition if you need. Do something if you need. But spending this time character building someone whose whole thing is just basically whinging about not having any freedom.
Oh, he's getting his Sega Genesis.
So Skynet is now software. It's like
the South Park episode of Trapper Keeper.
Yes.
It gets into everything. And so that's how it's going to take over. And still either shut everything down and then launch the missiles, but wouldn't that still inherently be part of the system anyway? If Genisys was controlling the military?
I don't want to get ahead of myself here, but
yeah.
How do you defeat software by blowing up a building? It doesn't work like that, does it?
That's the thing, isn't it? Because it will just transfer the data somewhere else. Or that you have to find where the hub of that data is.
This is like the biggest world-changing technological development in a generation or something. The only copy of that software isn't going to be in that building. It's.
Well, when you say that isn't there the threat of archiving? They talk about this with the film history, where if a film is just stored on a hard drive, that hard drive is going to rot over time. Then that film is lost. So they have to put it onto film, 35mm film, to keep it stored, but then do a new copy of that later on. So you have to keep making a copy of a copy. So Skynet will have to keep copying itself until its hard drive rots, until it's screwed up,
But I mean, digital information is going to be. I think you're going to have to try pretty hard to lose a valuable piece of digital information just because of degrading storage devices or whatever. Yeah. I've got a friend of mine's justification for listening to vinyl. He won't accept he's a hipster. Nothing against vinyl at all. I love vinyl. But he won't accept that there's anything about it he likes other than it's just more practical than digital, because one day the digital won't be there. And but hang on, vinyl's... No, this doesn't make any sense. It can be endlessly copied, repeated, backed up, and so on. Whereas a piece of vinyl will...
I think Arnold, despite being an older guy, he's having a lot of fun with it. I think I think playing Terminator is second nature to him, and I think he does a pretty good job in this, despite the failings of the script.
Brilliant! Yeah, he's great. He's great. It was a shame that they wrote him to be more of the comedy Terminator than the scary Terminator. But yeah, he's going to get his way, isn't he? Let's be honest.
It's a shame they never returned to scary Terminator. Apart from just a little bit at the beginning of T2, he's scary Terminator.
Yeah.
Until he says, "Get down."
Yeah, the shot of him coming out of the elevator at the lunatic asylum in T2, even though he's a goodie there, that's a fabulous shot. I mean, because you're seeing it from Sarah Connor's perspective.
And the music really keys it up, doesn't it? This score was done by Lorne Balfe, one of Hans Zimmer's guys, I think. And the music executive produced by Hans Zimmer. Lorne did some amazing work recently on Axel F, one of the great soundtracks that was. this was. I mean, look, this music isn't quite as memorable as Brad Fiddel's, of course, because Brad Fiddell is a legend. But the Terminator themes are kind of okay. It's the better attempt at it outside of T2. But it's the Hans Zimmer theme. It's the Terminator theme that's been Hans Zimmerified. You know. See, this little shot here where he's coming out of the car. If we get to Dark Fate, it's a similar moment we see of that, where it kind of copies itself to jump out onto someone from a vehicle.
Who's driving this car? No, sorry, stop nitpicking.
Don't question this movie. I love his bit here. She has to look at him. Whoa, you're pretty good. You shot the car that was right in front of you with a grenade.
Let's mate.
Also, Arnold keeps saying, doesn't he? Have you mated? You know.
It's frustrating because that stuff is quite funny. It was making me laugh, that stuff, but I don't want him to be saying it.
I thought, right, in my head, when because she hasn't told him yet that she knows he's the father. Well, he's the father of John Connor, right? And Arnold's like, have you told him yet? And I just thought, what? She's going to say she's on the pill or something. You know, that's going to happen. Now, this is all kind of weird as well. Like, they don't explain how who sent Arnold back in time, the Terminator, to the late 60s to protect Sarah Connor. That's never explained. It's all here. They don't know. Also, how do they know the T-1000 turned up? How do they know blah, blah, blah? This is all going to be apparently explained in a sequel. Who sent them back?
And how do they know exactly when and where to be?
Yeah.
As well.
This is the problem.
I've gone round and round with that in my head, trying to think what explanation could there be for that. And I'll freely admit I'm not the best at, piecing these things together. I like things to be spelt out sometimes, but it seems impossible. There's so many plot holes.
Oh yeah, all this stuff doesn't make any sense in terms of the events. That's what kind of it leaves you just thinking, okay, well, do I just accept it and just enjoy it for what it is? But with Terminator, there's always a little bit of logic behind stuff. The things kind of the ducks are lined up in a road, and you think, oh, okay, you can get from point A to point B, and this getting from A to B is really confusing.
Exactly, yeah, and that's because Cameron kept it simple in the first two movies. For time travel movies, they're incredibly linear and simple, and this creates so many problems for itself, this movie, but that it doesn't need to as well, and then it sort of fails to write its way out.
How do they power up this other Terminator? Because it's because he dropped some liquid on it. They took out the power source.
Yeah, the way that the liquid metal works in this is baffling. Like, at the end as well, when I didn't understand what had happened at the end until I read something on Wikipedia explaining that because Arnold's T-800 falls into the liquid metal, he's somehow upgraded magically. Like, what? I do like these action scenes, though. I think that's probably what kept me going. A minute ago with the arrival of the T-3000 or whatever it's called, the making the spear out of its own liquid metal and spearing Arnold from a distance. That's fantastic.
I suppose it's like a Terminator sequence we haven't seen before. It's kind of a play on Carl Reese getting chased by a Terminator from the first one, and it's kind of amped up to sort of a bit more action-packed and making use of modern technology. But it's that did nothing to it.
Yeah, I thought that was going to kill it actually at one point, because now we know that you can kill a Terminator with a sniper rifle or take it out anyway. It's like, when did that happen? I thought they were rather stronger than that.
See, lines like that's an action movie quip.
Yeah.
Too old for this shit.
Yeah, he's desperate to say I'm too old for this shit, isn't he? I like this stuff as well. I like anything that suggests that they've used their time and information to create systems and situations that will help them, setting up all this stuff. Like there's a bit later on when in the next time period, I can't even remember if it was 2017 or something, when Arnold and Jai Courtney are sitting there loading bullets into a magazine. I was thinking, you've had 30 years to do this. And instead, the last 5 minutes before the attack is coming, you spend like, what?
My girlfriend said that. She goes, why are they doing this now? Yeah. They had all this time. And this becomes this little comedy moment where they're trying to do it quicker than the other.
Yeah, it's for that moment, which is, it's a nice, I see the point of that moment, but a clever writer would have achieved the same effect with something that made more sense. Give him a guitar to play. We all know that's how you resolve this situation.
It was quite cool in T2 where they knew it was the T1000 because its feet had melted to the floor, because it had gone all glitchy, hadn't it?
I think this is a really clever idea. I love this.
The feedback of this movie, because it made quite a bit of money. It did extremely well in China. I think we made a lot of its money.
I think it was I read somewhere a bit of trivia. It was the first film ever to make more than $100 million in China without making $100 million in the US.
Really? Wow. But it's again, these movies cost a lot of money to make, and it's. I think Alan Taylor, the director, said he wished they'd just given him less of a budget, so we could do something a little bit more grounded, a little bit more smaller. It doesn't. I don't think Terminator needs to be this big. I think because of T2, everything has to be big. It has to be the most expensive film ever made. It has to be over the top, loads of new technology, and it doesn't need that. The core of the Terminator is something that's can be done nitty gritty, kind of small key. And
wouldn't it be interesting to see a stripped down B-movie version of a Terminator sequel?
Yeah. What would be now a B-movie Terminator would be a $50 million movie, right? A24 doing it, right? With a really kind of unique director that hasn't just made a Marvel movie, whatever. It just made something that's kind of really interesting, horrors or something. It's going to do something different with this.
Someone who understands genre rather than someone who understands blockbusters.
Yes. But also, it doesn't make sense here. How do they know how to make a time machine?
Well, it'll tell us in the sequel, or timeline, whichever lazy, half-assed excuse you want.
Would Skynet put the details and the schematics of a time displacement unit in a regular T800? Would they?
Maybe they got it on the dark web. Yeah, apparently everything's on the dark web.
They seem to it seems that Skynet seems to offload all its stuff into a regular Terminator. So they can make it, but we can't power it up because we need the chip from the future. Right, okay. You can only use it once, and they plug it into looks like an arcade board to make it work. It's like this really fun as arcade machines, giant PCB boards. Put it into Street Fighter 2. Powers it up,
That would be brilliant if there was like an arcade machine in the background there with a big wire running out of it to this time machine.
So it's 84 was like Frogger or something. Dragon Slayer.
Yeah, I mean, I must admit, I did laugh out loud when they walked into this room and they're like, "Yeah, we've got a time machine, but we need this chip to make it work." Okay, right.
That's amazing, isn't it?
So, and also, I didn't quite. Did they go straight on to? Oh, it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. No, I'm not going to get involved.
And this is they're sort of fretting over what timeline to go back to now, isn't it? Because all the change, because they're going to go to 1997, and now everything the timeline's changed because there's a new timeline. It's like it's the Biff future, isn't it?
Yeah,
Back to Future 2.
Exactly.
So they've got to.
And Reese has got
2017.
Reese somehow has just enough memories from a different timeline to create just enough confusion in this timeline to warrant doing things differently than they would have done in this timeline.
Yes, because he had there's flashes of imagery as he went back in time, wasn't it? You know.
And again, it just shows you what an idiot Skynet is. If Doctor Who had waited 5 seconds before doing what he did, none of this would have been possible. But for some reason, he wanted to just give Carl Reese a brief glimpse of what was going on before he went back into this brief glimpse.
Yes, it's plot convenience, isn't it?
It's funny, but again, watching that documentary and reading up on some of the background, actually, you get the impression almost nobody wanted to be in this movie.
Pretty apart from Arnold.
Doctor Who didn't. Yeah, Arnold, because he just got to make stupid jokes. But yeah, Doctor Who didn't want to be in it. It took ages to persuade him, apparently, and I think it was only on the grounds that they convinced him he'd have a bigger, better role in the sequels that he actually, signed up for it. J.K. Simmons clearly didn't give a toss about anything, said no repeatedly, and then his daughter mentioned she was a big Jai Courtney fan, so he agreed to do it just to meet Jai Courtney and get him to record a birthday message for her.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because it's a Terminator franchise. They're all generally popular, and you think they all seem like they don't want to do it. Maybe just
they'd all have read the script, though, wouldn't they?
Oh, yeah, I suppose so. But I'm sure maybe a lot of their agents were pushing them to do it.
Yeah,
it's now under Paramount Pictures. It's going to be big,
Emilia Clarke said she thought she was too young for the role as well, and didn't want to do it for that reason, which is true.
Yeah. I mean, Jai Courtney, when I saw this, I thought he's bloody awful. But when you see him in like Suicide Squad, which is a terrible film, he's pretty good at it. He's like, he fits with the character.
Yeah.
And that was the frustrating thing of seeing this, was that he was kind of woefully miscast. And you watch the early promos for this, outside of Carl Reese's character, the actors were sitting there, and Arnold was kind of making fun of Terminator Salvation. I was just like, fucking hell, mate. Have you seen this film? And Cameron, because that was the thing, to persuade everyone to go see this movie, James Cameron comes out and he talks about seeing it, how much he oh my God, I can see my original movie in this. They're recreating stuff, and he's giving it this glowing review, essentially. Everyone's like, oh, this must be a good film. And you go see it, and everyone came out going, all the reviews, like UK, I think US press, generally is like convoluted mess, basically, this was. And a pale comparison to 1 and 2. It may be better than Salvation or 3 to some people. But then Cameron backtracks, and like 2 years after the film came out, saying that he only endorsed it because Arnold was in it, and that's his friend. And it's the whole thing where, I'm not sure if me and you have brought this up before, it's like Spielberg and Lucas. Spielberg will not bash Lucas, and vice versa, right? Usually people want Spielberg to bash Lucas because he's done stupid shit, right? But he won't bash him because it's his friend, and that's fine. You don't air out your dirty laundry to the press, right, in that regard. But I suppose if you spoke to Spielberg privately, you'd probably go, yeah, those Star Wars remasters are shit.
Can read between the lines. I do remember a funny quote from
Backtracks
Spielberg.
on E.T., didn't he? So
yeah, yeah. But I remember seeing Spielberg talking about the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. And he was like, so we've got to come up with this plot. And George liked this plot, and I wasn't sure, but he got really, really enthusiastic about it. Okay, fine, George, whatever. Just,
Spielberg wouldn't act like that in the 80s. He wouldn't say whatever. In the 90s, he wouldn't say whatever.
No, but to go back to what you were saying about Jai Courtney and her again, they're both good actors, nothing against either of them. It's just a classic case of miscasting. And apparently they wanted to bring Christian Bale back when the original concept, I think, was to be slightly more, so this is such a cheese, that shadow shot of Emilia Clarke's boobs, which is what that shot is. It's a shadow shot for Emilia Clarke's boobs. It's so cheesy. But yeah, they wanted to make this more of a direct sequel to Terminator Salvation and bring Christian Bale back, but he wasn't interested. And just looking at the other people they were considering casting, and I do remember thinking one of them, was it Oh no, I can't remember who. There was someone they were talking about casting, who I thought would make more sense.
What do you think of Jason Clarke? Because I think he's again a brilliant actor, and he does some good moments in this. But I'm never too fussed who really plays John Connor.
Yeah.
Because in T2, what you see him is basic. I think it was like a stuntman they put in place to play the on-screen stuff. You're just like, you could just cast Chad Stahelski or something to be John Connor.
Exactly. John Connor's effectively a blank slate. All he has to be...
Guy with a scar on his face.
Yeah, guy with a scar on his face. But if you're going to make him a main character, a major character, then he has to be inspirational. He has to be almost mythic, because what he does is he gathers the remnants of the human race around him and gives them hope. So that's always, and I'm not entirely convinced that's Jason Clarke. Again, Jason Clarke is not just a good actor, I think an exceptional actor. Although I've never really quite enjoyed him, if that makes sense. I've never really loved watching him.
He often plays like characters that you find frustrating, like things like Oppenheimer is in. He's a bit of a dick, but in this, again, he's playing a nice guy that becomes, a machine. And he just delivers the lines really well, even though he doesn't give a shit about it. And that's what, for me, makes a great actor. When an actor's in a film, they don't give a toss about their performance is still brilliant.
Like J.K. Simmons, actually, who's another highlight for me in this.
He's good in this. He's just this baffled, guy who's come across. He's acting like he's some sort of conspiracy theory going on.
But Jason Clarke was, I think he's good casting, because he's got to be a really good actor. He's got to be someone with gravitas and weight, which he has. But it could just do with being a bit more of an inspirational type of gravitas, if you know what I mean, a bit more mythic, as I said. And when I read that they tried to get Tom Hardy in the role, I thought that's an interesting idea. That would have been really good.
Tom Hardy, I would have liked that. Tom Hardy, because it'd be difficult for him to not swear, You fucking cunt,
But the scene, there's a lot of heavy lifting to be done by Jason Clarke in this, because he's obviously starts playing the switched evil version of himself, and that scene, I think it's in a car park after the big action set piece, when it's first revealed who he is, what he is. He's really, really good.
Yes,
in that scene.
That's the bit I was thinking of when he was like, because my girlfriend was like, "That's a great bit with Jason Clarke." This bit here is fucking stupid, right? They appear on his runway. it's like not runway, sorry, like motorway, and it's fine. The cars get cut up by the whatever it is, the time displacement circle, but he protects her completely naked from a car that rams straight into him. That is, he's dead. Or his back is broken.
Yeah.
This is ludicrous.
They're also very lucky that someone built that overpass there, because if they hadn't, they'd have materialised 50 feet above the ground and plummeted to their deaths.
Look at that. Back broken, dead or whatever. No, it's fine. It's just like, it's just a flesh wound. Is this Last Action Hero? It's freezing cold. My penis has shrunk. They're usually this small.
There's no explanation given, I'm not saying there should be, but there's no explanation given to my knowledge that can sort of dictate the control they have over this time travelling device, like where they turn up. Obviously, when they turn up, they've got control over, but the where bit has always confused me a little bit.
I always thought usually you have to be in the same place you're sent from. You're just jumping forward.
You just ignore the fact that the Earth is constantly spinning and moving through space as well, which, it's a make-believe science, so you can do that. But I always like it when they try to explain things like that, when there's some sort of just, like I say, like, why did they end up there? Because obviously Arnold knows that's where they're going to be, because he's on his way there, so they must have...
And he's late because of traffic.
He's late because of traffic. He only had 30 years, that's fine. But, they must have... that freeway is under construction, so it's obviously knew it wasn't there then, but they knew it would be there, and they chose to land in the middle of it instead of, or
You're overthinking this way too much. You know?
my point is, if Arnold knows where they're going to be, then presumably they have control over where they're going because they can at least know in advance where it's going to be. So why land there? Why not land in a quiet back street, which is what happens in previously in the first two movies when and I'd always assumed that makes sense. Yeah, they chose to teleport someone to a quiet spot at night time so that they wouldn't be noticed. They can't do it in the middle of nowhere because they need to steal a vehicle and have transportation. So that makes complete sense. But landing just there like that, and they can't say it's an accident because Arnold knew it was going to be there.
No, it's supposed to be. Well, it's all led up. It's all supposed to lead up to the fact that they get arrested and then they encounter J.K. Simmons, and then the people don't know who they are, where they're from. So they're supposed to be caught by the authorities, and as we've seen with the other films, the setup is they're always somewhere safe, and then they get to where they need to be because that's the setup. But this is halfway through the film. I think they put them into jeopardy straight away is the key point, wasn't it, in the story? But it doesn't really make sense. And where can they decide where to put stuff? I like that old school Arnie there.
Yeah,
he's got the centre parting hair. Yeah, that's good.
I thought you were going to say you like how much that little girl looks like a young Emilia Clarke, because it is spooky. I don't know if they're related or something, but she really looks like Emilia Clarke. Or maybe it's CG tweaked, I don't know.
But this is all bollocks. We just don't know. We don't know who sent Arnold back. Could it have been Miles Dyson? Could it have been Miles Dyson's son?
Miles Dyson's idiot child.
Yeah. Could it have been? Who else? Who else could we? J.K. Simmons.
That I could buy. I read somewhere that I can't remember if it wasn't a fan theory, but I don't think it was necessarily fact either. That the idea was that the Terminators had been accidentally sent back too far in that timeline, which is why the child version of Sarah Connor gets involved.
Oh, he's the guy. He looks like Orson Welles.
Oh yeah, I see what you mean. Actually,
he's from Mad Men.
You see, if everything so far had been more akin to the tone of the first film or even the second film, this bit now would be a great light breather comedy moment. But as it is, it's just kind of more because they're fun. I like these guys. I like this. The Orson Welles guy's just moaning that he's got to deal with this, and he's just waiting for Homeland Security to come take over so he can go to bed.
I think tonally, this bit fits with the police in the first one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But
and when we see other parts of the hospital coming up, you see, I think a really interesting production design where they're trying to keep it in key with what Cameron had done with the look of San Francisco sort of area. Well, that's I suppose California, where they've that sort of future style design with like Skynet, Cyberdyne, sort of fits. Not this hospital stuff. This is just generic stuff, but when we sort of get out of that, I'll point it out actually.
Yeah, the reason, or one of the reasons that worked so well in the first film, that police scene, is because of the contrast. Because everyone we'd spent time with had been like manic, life and death situations, dashing from place to place, and then all of a sudden you've got these kind of slightly lazy, laconic, like kind of bored people just making half-assed wisecracks with each other,
drinking coffee, smoking cigarettes. It's Friday night and they're all fed up and bored.
But here, these guys are just. I mean, everyone's got that kind of tone. God, he really does look like Orson Welles, doesn't he?
It's mad, isn't it? I think he has played him before in something.
The definitive Orson Welles will always, for me, be Vincent D'Onofrio in Ed Wood.
Yeah,
love that scene.
The greatest Tim Burton movie.
Absolutely.
2 months ago, Kyle Reese was brought in for fighting in the multiplex. His parents flipped the whole.
So had J.K. Simmons won his Oscar at this point? I can't remember which. This was Whiplash.
Whiplash, yeah. Maybe?
I think Whiplash was just before this. So maybe he'd done the performance but hadn't won the Oscar when he was filming this. I don't know. It just seems like a really odd choice for him, because he doesn't do movies like this, does he? I know he did the Spider-Man once, but they're much more like they're like auteurs, blockbusters.
Yeah. Well, he's in Justice League, wasn't he, as well as Commissioner Gordon?
Oh yeah. Oh, maybe
That's
he
just
does do
lazy.
movies like this,
Let's
then.
get him because he was in Spider-Man. No. J.K. Simmons is the guy from Spider-Man, you know.
No, you're not. It just even sounds wrong when he says that.
He would play John McClane's son, wouldn't he, in Die Hard 5?
Oh God, of course, yes.
God.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know, it's this kind of weird thing. He's a bit like Sam Worthington.
Yeah, exactly.
Studios think he's going to be a great new actor, and they've seen the proof that he's a good actor. But let's put him in all these movies that he doesn't need to be in. You know, it's completely inappropriate for them.
Yeah, it's uncanny how much he's like Sam Worthington. I actually thought that watching it. And another one in that category for me, anyway, is I think he's a bit better known now because of Hawkeye. But the what's his name? Hawkeye. Let's just call him Hawkeye.
Is it Jason something? Isn't it?
I can't remember. The one from Hurt Locker.
They
all come along and they all kind of look slightly similar as well, and they sort of come along and do a similarly impressive performance in a similarly budgeted and successful movie, and they're kind of talked about as being the next big thing, and then they kind of
Jeremy Renner, sorry.
Jeremy Renner, that's it, yeah. I think he'd have, because really Sam Worthington and Jai Courtney, to my mind, I might be wrong, but I feel like they've kind of fizzled away a little bit. I don't feel like they're as bigger stars as everyone thought they were going to be. And perhaps Jeremy Renner has only really survived in that, and become the megastar he is because the Avengers series was successful, whereas...
And he is a good actor. He's good in them.
Oh, yeah. They're all good actors, yeah.
Yeah,
I like Jeremy Renner a lot, actually.
Sam Worthington just has, every couple of years, $1 billion movie box office with Avatar because he shot them ages ago.
That's it, yeah. If he hadn't done Avatar to begin with, what would he be doing now?
He would have disappeared, I think, into TV.
Am I imagining it, or are they all Australian as well? No, Jeremy Renner's not, is he?
Jai Courtney's Australian.
Isn't Sam Worthington as well? Yeah.
He's Australian as well, yeah. And
Jason Clarke too, actually.
Yeah. It's like the reunion of Neighbours or Home and Away or something, I remember someone saying, like, Sam Worthington was a nightmare, like, to work with, especially on, I think, the sequel to Clash of the Titans, Wrath of the Titans, I think it was. He was an absolute drama queen,
Yeah.
Allegedly.
I can believe that.
Is it going too far? Now, the military control of Genisys, not just being this social media platform or an operating system, it's now going into the military. It's like...
That's an interesting little idea, that, because I don't know. I started thinking, well, they wouldn't let that happen. One company with, and then you look at what Elon Musk's up to these days, and you think, well, it's probably only really a matter of time until.
Yeah. He'll just come out one day. We're rebranding. We're calling it Skynet.
Yeah.
Okay? or Cyberdyne or something. You'd be like, wait a minute.
In fact, what's his big internet satellite thing called? Isn't that got a name quite like Skynet?
Wasn't it? When he SpaceX, you think?
No, not SpaceX. The one he's got this like the whole world can tap into his satellite-based internet service now, and isn't it called something like Skynet? I can't remember. I've got family who live in the middle of nowhere and they've never been able to have the internet, but now they can, and it's like super fast, and they're really pleased about it. And all your data's going straight into Elon Musk's pocket.
Starlink, is that what it's called?
Starlink, yeah, Starlink, Skynet, yeah, come on.
Starlink's more Star Trek-y, isn't it? I don't know. Or Starcom. Should have called it Starcom. Like those old toys.
If you think about it, it basically means the same thing. Sky and star, link
Yeah.
and net. It's those scars don't look real to me.
Yeah, I was about to say they kind of look okay, but you're like, no.
No, they don't look like real scars. I mean, I'm not sitting here thinking that's fake, but when you think about what scars actually look like, it's I don't know.
Yeah, they'd kind of move with the skin as well. Wouldn't stay, static.
I suppose maybe the one problem with Jason Clarke in this, because like I say, these scenes, I think he works a lot better than he does in the future scenes. The problem is he does have an inherently sinister air, so you don't believe from the. I mean, like I say, I had no recollection of this whatsoever. But the second he walked through that door, I knew that by the end of this scene, they're going to be shooting at each other or something.
Yeah. I mean, well, to be honest, mate, I already knew because the trailer was spoilt for me.
Yeah,
It spoils
yeah,
everything. So, but at the end of the day, we don't know really how John Connor acts. It's just interpretation of what someone thinks he would be like. See, Christian Bale is very aggressive, shouty John Connor who's desperate and he needs to get things done quickly. He's up against time, isn't he? And I kind of like his interpretation of John Connor, but it's still very much Christian Bale being Christian Bale at that point in time. I think if he played it now, I think he'll be a little bit more nuanced with his performance. But it's also what the script's wanting him to do,
and what the director's telling him to do as well. I'm a big believer in. I don't like throwing actors under the bus just offhand, because so often it's the script and what the director's telling him to do, and also the choices that the cut, the shot that the director chooses. See, Skynet. Didn't he just make like a mistake that he forgot what he should and shouldn't know or something, and that's how it's all revealed. Which,
yeah.
Skynet is basically an idiot.
Look at Jai Courtney's arms.
So
They're
buff.
just so fucking buff. You can see all the veins on his arms because he literally, before the take, went off camera, grabbed some mates, and went, then went action. Every Terminator film, you've got to have a car park, haven't you?
Yeah.
Underground car park. 1 and 2. 3? Is it 1 and 3? No, it was not 1 and 3.
And you got to have Arnold carrying something ironic. Apparently, a bunch of flowers, teddy bear.
Yeah. I do like the idea it's a teddy bear because you walk into hospital, you know what I mean? Could be like a bag of fruit or something, loads of grapes.
Allegedly, that's Arnold's real hair, not dyed or anything. So it's
Oh, it's great.
had his hair washed out, had the dye washed out, and
I think people should just look their natural hair when they're that age. When you dye, you just look weird. You do look weird.
my advice is just make the most of it if you've got it.
You should go for a wicked comb over, Rob, like Bill Murray in Kingpin. Oh, now that's a great way to get out of bed, wouldn't it?
God, I'd put my back out doing that.
Yeah.
What is Jason Clarke best known for? Is it those Planet of the Apes movies? I've never quite been able to get a handle on what I've seen him in.
Was he only in the sequel? It was was it the War of the Planet of the Apes?
I think I've only seen the first one or two of those.
They're all very good films. It was in Wall Street, Money Never Sleeps, Great Gatsby, White House Down.
I was going to say, yeah, White House Down. Weirdly, although it's a small role, White House Down is what I think of him most from, because I love that movie.
He's in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. Yeah, I think there's only one of those. And then he was Pet Sematary. He's in pretty much something every year.
So he does it. So he's kind of doing more blockbusters than. Because he seems like the kind of guy who should be doing like small scale dramas interspersed with the occasional big blockbuster.
Jai Courtney's, yeah, he's had basically. He's still kind of getting work, but it's like one film a year sort of thing.
Mm.
But again, he's an actor who you wouldn't. He's not a character actor. He could potentially be. We haven't really seen that from him, but he's not someone you'd cast. You'd cast a Jason Clarke in sort of be more of a character.
Yeah, he doesn't have a distinctive enough air about him, really, does he?
Mm.
Jai Courtney, I mean.
Yeah. You hire him to be the muscle because he's spent his life just buffing up,
He does. He does look like he could be Bruce Willis's son, though.
Maybe that's good casting then.
That's one of not all that many films I've turned off and never put back on again because I just hated it so much. Die Hard 5, whatever it was.
Directed by that hack director who did the Omen remake and Max Payne movie.
Oh dear,
it was like
that's not a great trilogy, is
it?
He
had a series of shit movies. Someone was saying like, "Oh, he's like the new Richard Donner." It's like, no, don't you dare say that. Mention his name.
And another scene of two robots smashing each other about.
Yeah, there's quite a lot in this movie. A lot of fights kicking off. I mean, they're not badly choreographed stuff.
No, absolutely not. No.
Interestingly, right, this is clearly a stuntman here. You can see it's so obvious. Oh, where's it gone? I might have missed it. Anyway, second unit of this, and the director of photography, I think it was DP, is Alexander Witt, who did a lot of a lot of the second unit on most of the big movies, like the main guy to get. But there's a lot of the look of it, because even though it says this film's photographed by someone else, at the opening it says second unit and DP Alexander Witt. I thought, well, wait a minute, it's credits someone else as a cinematographer. But anyway, I thought it looked a bit like Resident Evil 2, which he had directed. Alexander Witt had done. Which I thought, oh no, that's not good. That's not good at all. With the use of the blues, I thought, this looks very much like Resident Evil 2.
The worst of the Resident Evil movies is not something you want on your CV, is it?
God, it's really bad. Number 2 and 7, I think, or 6, whatever it is. The final film stinks. Now I do like this bit here, where the MRI machine kicks off, and he's walking towards Carl Reese, and you see the separation of the sort of the metal. You can tell. I think even though the filmmakers weren't really having fun making this, the actors and so forth, I think the visual effects guys have been having a lot of fun with this, especially with the battles and stuff later on. This is it's good visual effects here, and it's a great idea. I think
they're always trying to find new cool little things to do, VFX people, and this is a new cool little thing, isn't it?
Well, this was done. I think it was a mix of, was it ILM or MPC?
Yeah, a lot of it was done by MPC. I noticed, yeah, who I used to work for. There's a couple of names in the credits, people I know.
So this was 2015. You were still working.
No,
for them, right?
I wasn't at MPC then. That's actually the year that I left. No, the year before I left the industry. But yeah, I think it was looking at the names. I think it was probably the facility in is it Bangalore? Somewhere in India, anyway. There's a big MPC facility these days, or was then. And looking at a lot of the names, I think that's. But yeah, like I say, there's a couple of people I know. But yeah, a movie this big, you're never going to get just one facility handling everything.
No. It's weird seeing an MRI machine. I was in one of those the other week.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Again, so many little, like, if he's that powerful, surely he'd be like dragging the machine behind him rather than the machine tearing him apart. And
Well, no, I think that's supposed to be the weakness. Every robot's got to have a weakness, isn't it? And that's the magnetism it pulls off him is going to pull him apart.
magnets.
Yeah, magnets.
Again, Skynet's an idiot. It's vulnerable to magnets. I started reading. If I remember correctly, there's a bit of a boring spell between the MRI and the next action scene or something. So I was reading up on MRI machines, and apparently it takes like days to restart them, and you need like a tanker full of helium, something like that. They just flip the switch. Doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. So yeah, in terms of the order of things, does this ignore? So this ignores part 3, doesn't it? So the events of part 3 are irrelevant, and the same goes for part 4.
Part 2 is irrelevant as well, isn't it? Well, and it's got Miles Dyson, so yeah, okay, 1 and 2 are kind of not ignored, I don't think, because we've got the liquid metal T1000.
Yeah,
but yeah, so 3 and 4 kind of ignored. But you could say this is a continuation of number 4 because it's just continuing on. It opens up with them finishing up the battle with Skynet, which Salvation would have done with the next film, or whatever. So technically, it's a reboot. You could say semi-sequel,
but
right?
you've got to do a little bit of mental bending to make 4 fit, really, because it doesn't.
You do. You really do.
So in a way, then, is every Terminator movie since Terminator 2 has been a Terminator 3. If you know what I mean. Every single Terminator movie has followed on from Terminator 2 and ignored whatever's come in between them.
Okay. What we see in this one is that they recreate 1984, which has the T1000, and then we are seeing Miles Dyson, who appear in number 2. We don't see locations or story beats of T2, though.
But there's no reason why T2 should be excluded from this narrative, if you know what I mean. There's nothing that contradicts what happens here that I can think of, anyway.
Well, things have been delayed, though, so it's no longer called Skynet. It's called Genisys, right?
Different timeline.
It's a different timeline. The times have changed, so any events of T2 have changed.
But if you ignore, if the only 3 Terminator movies that existed were 1, 2, and this one,
and she went forward in time. She went forward in time, didn't she, from 84? So T2 doesn't exist.
Right? Yeah.
She wasn't there in 91, whatever, to blow up Cyberdyne.
But because it's a different timeline, that doesn't necessarily contradict anything. It doesn't make it. It just makes it kind of irrelevant. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my god, we're confusing ourselves.
Because it does feel like that. Like every single attempt is just an attempt to make part 3.
Also, with advertising, don't advertise a child as this kind of like new software or thing. You'll get to meet me soon or something. It's like Resident Evil. You're going to die down here, or whatever. Or introducing fucking Damien.
And where did that come from? Because in real life, none of these artificial intelligence things or artificial characters who we communicate with, whether it's Siri or Alexa, none of them are children, because people find electronic children freaky as fuck. So why are they always children in movies? I suppose because they're freaky as fuck. This was stupid as well. I'm not going to start nitpicking him, but come on, this is like a massive tourist. It overlooks the Golden Gate Bridge. There's busloads of tourists just below this, but somehow he's been coming and going for decades, filling this place up with all this kit, and no one's noticed.
I love how they got all this ammunition. Who's going to carry all this stuff?
And how did they get it down there through that little hatch as well?
Arnie had 30 years, mate, to do this. So. Now this is a bit where we were discussing earlier with them trying to load up the bullets, and she finds our old. It's so funny, right? It's like she hasn't seen it for years, but she's only saw it a couple of days ago because she went through the time thing. Doesn't mean she's like hasn't seen this stuff. You know what I mean? It's like literally a couple of days for her. Oh, I remember those pictures I drew, or like whatever, or that tape I listened to last week.
Just imagine that if this was, oh God, what's her name? Linda Hamilton. If this was Linda Hamilton doing this stuff, I'd buy it a hell of a lot more.
I'd buy that for $1.
So over the last 3 decades, the Terminator has learnt to be competitive.
Oh, the amount of, like, I guarantee that hardcore Terminator fans, when they saw this, a lot of huffing and puffing in the cinema. Oh, this shouldn't be in the film. Fuck's sake.
It's a nice little moment. It doesn't make any sense at all, but it's a nice little moment, and with a point as well, because it reveals this, and
he's got Terminator arthritis.
Yeah. It reveals his flaw, but also in that look, it reveals that he's concerned about Sarah Connor not seeing that he's developed this flaw. I don't know how a scene like this snuck through, actually, because it actually kind of means something. It achieves something character-wise. Why are there like rows and racks and racks and racks of identical guns? And what?
They chose a location, need to fill it up with stuff. That's why you've got endless amounts of guns. Guns.
Because of the Matrix.
It is the Matrix. Yeah, I was thinking that. Yeah.
So just looking at my notes about the timeline. I'm going to put the timeline to bed completely. So different timeline, but the same events happen. Ultimately, so for example, there's a bit where Sarah Connor gets, if you notice, she gets exactly the same injuries as Sarah Connor gets in Terminator 2. Ah, yeah, so that kind of suggests that it doesn't follow on from Terminator 2, because a lot of the things that... So do you remember when she's in the elevator in Terminator 2 and the T-1000 gets her back? No, it's her shoulder, isn't it?
Yeah.
So she sustains exactly the same injury in this, and a couple of others that I read this, I didn't notice it. So I guess this does then.
But the injury she gets is from the car, though, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. She gets exactly the same injuries, but she achieves them in a different way, which really confuses me when it comes to how the timeline. So, like, everything ends up the same, but it happens in a different way, basically. So it's effectively what it's saying is the exact opposite of what the Terminator series is all about, which is that we make our own fate, that fate can be changed. This film seems to be saying that fate can't be changed. Everything's going to end up exactly the same. It'll just happen in a different way, which I don't really understand, because once you change the timeline and everything starts happening differently, all bets are off, aren't they?
Yeah, it should be, yeah.
Like the child that they conceive now, it makes no sense that child would be the same child. It'd be a different, without wanting to say the word sperm in a commentary, which I don't think I've ever done before, it would be a different sperm that impregnated her, and that would lead to that would be a different egg. The sperm and the egg would be different, and
that's why we got different John Connor. That's why we got Jason Clarke.
So that's why he looks different, but he does exactly the same things, and is exactly the same character, and has exactly the same life, because he also becomes the leader of the resistance. And it's just I'm just making sure I understand it right.
What the problem is, they're trying to create visual continuity, but because of the whole thing, there's no fate for what we make for ourselves. Things should be different, but they're not, because they're trying to create continuity, because fans like continuity.
Yeah,
things make sense with continuity, but because they've buggered everything up with this new varying timelines and how people get here and there, because that's not explained, because that'll be explained in a sequel. It's all a bit of a bugger's muddle.
Yeah, it's a pick and mix essentially. They've taken the bits that they want, and I mean, at the end of the day, time travel's not real. So what are why should there be rules?
But also, this is what it probably was on concept. Like, what the pitch was, let's return to Terminator 1. Let's have some fun with this. Let's have fun with time travel, return to bits people love, and redo it, and have an action scene there, and then go somewhere else, hop around, have fun with it, right? And they've gone, yeah, let's do that. But then they've thrown so many other ideas into it. It just becomes this, what? Like, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't really make sense, but who cares, right? And some people watch this. I remember when I reviewed it ages ago, someone had said, like, oh, I enjoyed it for what it was, blah, blah, blah. And people, I suppose how passionate you are about the Terminator franchise, if you're really passionate about it and you're a big fan of it, this is like a bit of an insult. This is like, what are you doing? You're fucking up everything. And it ends up being another Terminator film. Ends up being a massive letdown. And it just becomes this weird fan movies like we're watching now, where he's reciting the lines from the movie, and you've got Jai Courtney just like going, "No, John, please, no!" It's just like, ah.
I think my only sort of complaint, if you like, would be that a lot of the writing, the plot holes and the inconsistencies and so on, whether or not I've invented them in my mind because I've misunderstood something, or whether they were. They don't need to be there, you know. A little bit more attention to the writing would have solved these problems. I don't do what you want with it. I've said this before. I couldn't care less what they do with sequels, even sequels to my favourite films ever. I love those films. That's not going to change. The sequel's not going to make any difference. I don't need a sequel. If there's one comes along and it's good, then great. If it comes along and it's rubbish, then I don't care.
Well, that's the thing. We had an argument. Well, you're not an argument about, but a point of discussion we had. Like, people complaining, like, especially with the recent Alien Romulus, people were like, oh, there's a facehugger in it. They're repeating stuff, blah blah blah, and it's just fan service. Well, wait a minute. Sequels are fan service.
Yeah, well, exactly.
That's what they're made for. You know, to exploit you fuckers. You know, and you can either fall for it and enjoy it, or hate it. You know, and just don't see it. But you know, that's what sequels are. It's to monetize that fan base.
And if you really want to drill down into it, in a lot of cases, it's what the original movie is too, even before it has fans. Why do stormtroopers look like they look? Because George Lucas thought kids would think they look cool. Kids did think they looked cool. There's no practical reason for them to look like that. In fact, there's lots of practical reasons why they shouldn't look like that. If you've ever worn a stormtrooper helmet, you realise you can't see shit out of them. It makes no sense for, they look like that because it's cool. The trick is always the same, isn't it? It's to pull this stuff off without tipping your hand, without revealing what you're doing, without without the viewer becoming conscious of it, which is always the difference between a good movie and a bad movie. The plot of Star Wars is full of plot holes. I never think about them when I'm watching it.
I'm this bit where Arnie goes through the thing. I'm this bit when he hits the car.
Oh, that was some ropey CG there.
Nice to meet you. Now this is another big heavy CG sequence. Must have been a nightmare for NPC and ILM whatever to do, but it's a very complicated sequence, and they do pull it off. You know, there's sort of this storyboarding it and staging it and getting everything to work. You know, each shot to sort of slot to the other one. It kind of works, but it's another big over elaborate sequence, which is again trying to top the last film.
It's really T2. This makes me think of T2. This is the kind of scene that...
Well, T3, you know, especially with the street sequence. It's just like cars getting thrown everywhere, and, you know, Arnie chasing, he's a bit behind, he's got to try and catch up, and, you know.
Yeah, there has to be a massive vehicle that kind of plows through stuff. I guess ever since that truck in T2.
You got Amelia Clarke putting on a booster seat, trying to extensions on her legs to do the pedals. I don't know.
God, this is so stupid. It's so stupid.
I swear I've seen something like that in another movie before.
Are you being sarcastic? Or?
No, I'm not. I've seen this before somewhere else. A flipping bus, you know.
There's is it Batman or one of the Batmans has got the.
No, yeah, it flips a lorry, doesn't it, in Dark Knight?
The truck that, it's just the physics of it,
which
is
they
ridiculous.
do for real in the film. I mean, this like we've got to CG it, you know. And someone saving, like, catching someone as the bus falls down, and they're holding on to them as they go through it.
Yes, yeah.
What have I seen that in?
Yeah,
The Lost World does it, doesn't it?
The Lost World is the first one that comes to my mind. But yeah, there's a Fast and Furious, I think, where something like that. There's one in Fast and Furious when the truck's going over the cliff, and Paul What's-It's like running in the opposite direction, and leaps off the truck just as a car like does a handbrake turn, and he grabs the spoiler on the back of the car to
You see Arnie get out of the car as it's moving. You know, a little cool shot. It's supposed to be, all, you know, for teenagers to go, whoa, that's cool.
Don't forget the little magnet you got from the tannoy that can destroy Skynet.
Yeah, Magno Punch. This face.
I'll grab that on the way.
Yeah. Also, I swear something like that's happened in a Mission Impossible film or something, you know.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, the last Mission Impossible. There's a train carriage, I think it is, hanging off a.
Well, then they're copying this, then, aren't they? Oh, too bad that didn't happen in Under Siege 2 or something, you know.
Rewatched that the other day, actually.
It's a brilliant film.
It is great fun.
Oh, it's so much fun, but oh my god, there's so many bad moments in it.
It's so icky as well.
They speed up footage of Seagal walking down some steps. That's wonderful, wonderful. It's like watching a Bond film from the 60s. Everything's sped up, like Thunderball. Oh my god, this bit, yeah.
Yeah, this bit wants a bit of comedy music.
Yeah. God. You never ever see that in James Cameron's Terminator. Never. You never imagined that, you know.
God, the way magnets work in movies is always hilarious.
Because they pick and choose what they stick to, don't they?
And when it works, suddenly that magnet's just going to suddenly attract that one metal thing.
When it like pull out your fillings or something as well, you know, like in the MRI machine, when it's like 4, when it's turned up to 11, you know, like when it pull everything else off, like your belt and you know.
I mean, that's just like that magnet's just come out of a knackered little speaker as well, on top of a pole from the 60s or something. It's barely going to support its own weight if you try and hang it off something. Say what you will about all the comedy in this, and I think we have done, but Arnold still just looks freaking awesome as the Terminator. He just knows how to do it.
Yeah.
Just sitting there somehow, that couldn't be any other Arnold character.
I love this bit because he completely. Hey, sit down! It's like, and he sees like John Connor in disguise. Gets his arm.
These scenes are. I think this is the key. I mean, there's whether they're well cast or not, the actors are good, and that goes a long way in a movie like this. But these scenes really work. They're really well staged, I think, the action scenes. I don't know if that's the commonly held view. I tend to often have a different view to other people on movies, but
it's kind of entertaining because you're seeing something that's different. right? It's like a new little play on what we've kind of may have seen before, but it's like where she's caught in the police station, and then J.K. Simmons is kind of acting like Kyle Reese's role, maybe, or like the detective in the first one, where it's like, you got to get down, you know, we're getting attacked, and then it's a little bit like that, but it's played with different new twist.
Familiar, but with all the techniques and resources of a modern movie.
Yeah, new trimmings, you know, new.
This is weird as hell, I thought, as well. If that was my son, some lunatic woman escaping from the police got hold of his... I'd probably have said something by now. Maybe interjected somehow.
Was she just doing a straight line, or was she just like drawing a willy on his hand?
Yeah, but yeah, we'll just stand and watch. That's fine. Nothing remotely scary is going on or inappropriate here. It hadn't even occurred to me, actually, watching it, that this is such an obvious take on the scene from the first film.
Yeah. I love his entrances. I think kicks the door down or pushes it. It's having fun with the Terminator. You know what you can do with him, and having him as a sidekick still, and continuing what people loved about T2, and that's all they've done really with like with T3, and with this one, and the next one, Dark Fate, is what can you do to have fun with the Terminator, you know? And this one, I think, goes, but despite my problems with it, and I don't think it's a good film, it does kind of deploy ideas of what you can do with a Terminator and have fun with it, and it does it, you know.
Yeah,
I don't have that against it, you know?
No, of course, no. In the context of the Terminator franchise, we know what it has been sacrificed in order to have that fun. You know, the seriousness, you know, the weight of it. But that's, you know, when I'm criticising it for that, it's within the context of the Terminator franchise. It's not, doesn't make it a bad, you know, that's not what makes this a bad movie. It might make it a bad Terminator movie, but like I say, it's very easy for me to divorce, the fact that this is a Terminator movie from the fact that it's also just a movie.
It's like a it's a Terminator movie through the lens of a teenager who's played too many video games.
A modern teenager.
Yeah. These adults trying to appeal to that age range and what they think they seem to really enjoy, and this is what we get: a lot of big, long-winded action sequences in CGI with a lot of things don't really make a lot of sense, you know. And people seem to survive really dangerous moments, you know what I mean?
So where were we in the Marvel scheme of things in 2015? I can't remember. Obviously, it was before the big, the big crescendo of the.
Yeah. This is like Avengers 2, sort of like, you know, that Joss Whedon had done. Sort of timeline, I think.
So it's not basically the Marvel franchise was heavily influential by this point.
Oh yeah,
cinema in general. So it's no
it was on full steam ahead. You know what I mean? Everyone was loving it. Each movie was making a killing. You know, despite them being a bit, you know, do we need this one? Like the filler episodes, you know, sort of stuff.
Yeah, and funnily enough, it is the first Marvel movie that for me really dropped the ball big time was the one that this guy made, that third Thor one.
That wasn't the third one; it was the second one.
Sorry, the second one.
Dark World. Yeah,
Dark World,
that was the weakest one. Yeah, this wasn't a good film, you know.
And I saw that when I'd find it took me a long time to get on board with those movies. I really didn't like them at first. In fact, it was writing that superhero movie book. Funny thing is, if you watch 1,000 superhero movies and then watch the Marvel ones, they seem a lot better by comparison.
I'm just using himself as a torpedo, you know. Slow it down. There you go. Slow-mo helicopter. Boom. So if that was a miniature, that would be a lot more fun to watch.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been quite as impressive, I'm sure, and that it wouldn't have been so dynamic and all that, but it would have meant something. Not much, but something. This is confusing a bit as well, actually. There's like 5 identical buildings, aren't there, on this complex?
Yes.
We've seen that. So, yeah.
It must be the main head office, then. You know.
Somehow they all just happen to know which one to go into and where to find the... I suppose, well, he'd know, wouldn't he?
Well, yeah, they just follow the carnage, don't they? Now, okay, this is where it gets... Oh, this is silly.
Mm.
They got loads of cameras up everywhere to show a hologram.
The hologram projectors, yeah, I made a note about that.
And they're placed in weird places so he can appear and talk to them. It's like, what is this bollocks?
There's it's like walkways in like the industrial part of the building. There's projectors everywhere just in case Skynet needs to.
And it's like it starts out as a child, and as it begins to launch this app, like the countdown gets closer and closer, but he begins to form into a more of an adult, and it becomes Matt Smith, right?
Yeah. Again, Skynet proving it's an idiot. Why not just go? Oh, fuck it! I think I'll launch now.
Yeah. What?
It's all done and dusted if it does that.
Yeah. Why does it have to be a countdown?
I mean, it shows it's not waiting for something specific to happen, for an upload to complete or something equally stupid that they could have come up with, because it just randomly moves the clock on whenever it wants to.
Oh yeah.
But not all the way on though, just enough to increase the tension.
Yeah, we need some peril here. Mild peril. Oh, I love that. But that was good. That was good. Just throw him in a volcano or something.
See, that line doesn't ring true anymore because he's had so much dialogue himself in this movie, The Terminator. Jai Courtney does look good with a gun, actually. He does look like he knows what he's doing with it. He looks like he's had military training.
He's just wrong. He shouldn't be called Carl Reese.
Yeah.
He should be called, like, Dave or something.
Yeah, Dave Reese. From a timeline where there's a McDonald's on every corner.
No, I love these projections, right? Because I thought it would be like amusing if it was like just James Cameron appearing in my head.
Yes. Oh, that would be awesome.
They're trying to persuade you, like, no, CGI is really good. 3D's the future, Digital noise reduction. We need more of it. No, James, no!
I guess that's why it would have been difficult, even if they had the rights to it, to incorporate footage from the first movie into this ultra clean digital look, because it's very grainy, isn't it, the first movie?
Also, yeah, this film looks very I think it looks like TV movie-esque as well. TV, like what TV was kind of doing with like future tech stuff, right? How it was lit. It doesn't. It's not visually like that appealing. I don't think. It's not doing anything unique with it. And if when I looked at the HDR of this, it actually has a better color palette to it than the actual the Blu-ray 1080p. I think the colors are a bit more kind of nuanced, a little bit more kind of, I don't know, just kind of has a better palette to it, right? But still, I mean, it doesn't look like I'm watching a Terminator film. It just kind of feels like a copy of a Terminator film, And I watched it on Prime the other night, this film, and they recommended me The Terminators, right?
Oh.
The Terminators.
Yeah.
I was like, what's this? And it looked like a really knockoff of Terminator 3 poster.
The Asylum one, yeah.
Yeah, the Asylum one, yeah.
That is awful. That is absolutely awful.
And he got had 3.5 stars out of 5. Who rated this? Which maniac did that? This baby chases after her, right? It's like it's like your dad chasing after you, like trying to tickle your daughter. He's like, "Come on, I'm gonna get you." You know,
The way he rounds the corner there is yeah, that's proper dad chasing.
that is it. So good. Why leave that in? Because I saw it in the cinema. I laughed out loud seeing that. It's a different timeline, Sarah Connor. You can kill her. It's fine. It's not Linda Hamilton, Sarah Connor.
So what aspect ratio is this? Because I read it was shot anamorphic.
Well, if you look at the technical specs of this, there's a mix of 35mm, there's the red camera at 5K, and there's another camera using it at 3.5K. I think this is a digital movie.
I was going to say, yeah, what's shot 35mm in this then?
Must be some, I don't know, must be some sort of, for some sequences to give it a more filmic look. I don't know, really don't know, mate. This is rendered out as 2K. This is still the tail end of that 2K.
Yeah, so I was thinking, yes, 2015 digital cameras weren't where they are now, quite. But hang on a minute.
This is kind of essentially still a Super 35 film.
I'll tell you what explains some of my confusion. I've got my browser window open, and without me realising, it's been covering about 20% of one side of the screen. So that's why it hasn't looked quite as widescreen as I thought it was.
Fucking hell.
Wow, that's much wider. Look at that. That makes all the difference.
God. The eternal struggle of Rob Hill.
I'm just not interested in the technical business. I'm really not.
This hologram has got to be James Cameron. It would be so much better. It starts out as young James Cameron with loads of great ideas, and then by the end he's really old and he's just like, yeah, computers are great, and I don't have to do anything anymore. It's like
Smurf movies, they're brilliant.
I'm top of the world.
Anyone seen Dances with Wolves?
Has anyone seen Fern Gully? Nigga, that's ridiculous, isn't it? I mean, you can.
Cool.
It's cool though. I mean,
I
it's
like that.
It's this is schlock. This is schlock now. You know. How do we get this Apple store? It's like.
Oh no! Now he's full Doctor Who. You're in big trouble.
Just in case the audience forgot who they were fucking looking at, then let's have a flashback quickly. You know.
Is that what that was? I couldn't even tell what happened. Then it was so quick.
Now, there's a really weird bit coming up, right? I think the effect shot's fucked. I don't know. The frame rate drops to 5 frames. When he grabs his arm, you see him twist it, and it just goes. It goes kind of static. It's really weird when you see it, because that was in the theatrical print when I saw it, or in a digital copy, and it just looked bizarre. Either what they did with the effect, it didn't make sense visually what you saw on screen, so they had to drop the frame rates down to pause it essentially to make you think, oh, that's what he's doing, but it makes no sense. It should be coming up. So unfortunately, he's now lost his willy. Now he's
And his nose.
Yeah. Watch. Crack. Punch, 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 punch. Loads of punching going on here. Here we go. Back and forth. The effects artist having an absolute blast doing this, probably. What was it? What happens here? I think he got kind of... He's going to push him or something. It might have already happened, and I've completely like.
Maybe your internet feed just froze for a second.
No. Oh, I've got. Anyway, they've still got cameras there to sort of project him. Come on, but who would install all these things? Why would they? It's bizarre.
Well, no, that doesn't make any sense, actually. So I thought I had something then for a moment, but it went away.
Like, that was a very David Bowie labyrinth then, as he sort of like goes up the platform, you know. Aren't he reaching for something like in T2? He's got to reach the fucking grenade launcher. Come on.
At least that was an effective weapon. God, if I can just reach this tiny magnet, I can defeat Skynet.
It's like it's made out of licorice, you know.
Now, how did he not see him then? Or did he see him and he just wasn't interested? Jai Courtney, I mean, he's coming up. The Skynet man just walked like straight past him and then was somehow surprised by being hit on the back of the head.
Inspirational music kicking in.
God, they're really trying to sell it with that music, aren't they? Have you noticed as well, we're at that point where you keep hearing little motors and servo sounds. It's one of my bugbears with robots in movies is that you only sometimes, RoboCop does it a lot as well. You only hear like motor noises when there's like a dramatic reason to.
Yeah. But RoboCop is supposed to. The sound effects are there to sell the illusion that he's a machine. But when it's constantly going, making these weird sound effects, like, oh, come on. You're getting a bit over the top now.
So this is all happening because I couldn't understand what was happening here at first when I watched it. It's literally because he's got that magnet on his hand that Skynet has been rendered useless, basically.
Well, it's kind of handicaps him in a way, doesn't it? So he's stuck to him now, so he can basically break him apart now by turning on the time machine, and I suppose in usual, what people would come to expect that Arnold is going to die. You know, the Terminator is going to be destroyed again as usual, and you see him get thrown out of the unit into the liquid metal. And didn't they say earlier that the liquid metal didn't have any computer chips in it? So it's basically it's kind of pointless. It doesn't.
I don't even know what we're meant to think happens there. What are we supposed to think is the process involved in?
It's powered him up again and evolved him. It doesn't make.
But also turned him into liquid metal, because in a moment when he
is he supposed to be half
door,
though? I thought he's supposed to be like the TX, where he's got endoskeleton with liquid metal over the top of him.
Right. Okay.
Oh, that's what I think.
Okay. I don't think that makes any more sense, but okay.
No, it doesn't.
So I thought this was going to be like, somehow that's going to kill him. That's going to be the end of.
I thought they'd just be like, just kind of stuck in it, like Stallone in Demolition Man. He's like, just like frozen, and they find a naked old Arnold later on. Boom!
It's up. Okay, yes. So they've laid. We saw them laying like C4 charges, didn't we? But they've only been in one building this whole time now, haven't they? Have they not gone through all 5 of these buildings?
Yeah, hadn't Arnold already laid the foundation for it to blow up?
Oh, like over the last 30 years.
Yeah, because he had the trigger, didn't he? Which he couldn't trigger because Sarah Connor was there.
So he laid all of the charges apart from the important ones, which they laid at the last minute for some other reason.
Yeah, I think.
Because they do mention that he got on the construction crew somehow to.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is where the liquid metal arm comes through the door. Now, obviously, you assume it's going to be, to what I assumed anyway, that it was a T1000. Because I just can't. I can't get of all the. I don't want to just. I hate just nitpicking things like this. I really do, but I just can't grasp what on earth the process is there.
It was just like, we're going to have him with the sequel. He was going to be upgraded. He can now be a liquid metal Terminator. That was it. You know. I don't know. I mean, it's a bit of a weird one. I just thought in my mind it was kind of more like the TX, where he had a combination of being a robot and liquid metal.
I'm sure that's right. I just could have done with something explaining how falling in liquid metal somehow gives
and also,
you...
if he was full liquid metal, which he is now, maybe, like, he could just like refresh himself to look like a young Arnold, right? Just refresh. Like he does
There'd be a lot of expensive CG involved in that, though.
Oh, I know, yeah.
Oh, okay. So is that the arm? Did he lose that arm? I noticed a lot of the arm. Oh, yeah. The arm was yanked off, wasn't it? So that arm must be liquid. Maybe it's just that arm that's liquid metal.
Yeah, maybe. Citron pods. Oh, and you got to go. Like, this is great though, because they go to Carl Reese to give him the message so we can so the timeline they're in now. Everything happens, right? It's like Bill and Ted. Make sure I go put back the keys. You know, we found your keys. If you want them, you better come and get them. It's like puts on the phone.
For some reason, my last words are Enig.
Look at, she's like the same height as him, as the kid. Yeah, she's on lifts, man. For that, the kid's not that short.
Then there's a poster for this as well, with her standing next to Arnold, and she appears to be about 3 inches shorter than him. So I suppose, this is a nice touch in that this is young. So this is John Connor's father fiddling with a little motorbike in the same way that, that's how we meet John Connor in T2, isn't it? I think that's a nice touch.
Yeah.
Or stupidly obvious. I don't know. Really, one or the other.
It's just so weird. Like, the kid, this doesn't make any sense. Like, the kid wouldn't, like, who is this person? There's these people turning up just to spout some lines. You'd be like, who are you? You know.
And again,
I need an adult.
These strange, scary adults are just going to approach this child in his garden without. It's just weird.
It's weird.
Speak to the parents first. He looks so much like Bryan Singer in that shot. Then, Jai Courtney.
Oh God, that's not a good thing to look like, is it?
No, not crouching down, talking to a child without the parents' permission. Certainly. My God, she looks about 12.
Even Amelia, she knew she was too young for this. His creepy smile.
You've done that joke now quite a few times.
Please stop. We got a telegram from Paramount saying, please stop.
Oh, beautiful. No, seriously, that looks absolutely beautiful.
Oh, I wouldn't mind living there. That'd be nice.
Yeah.
Be a nightmare to find to get to the shops or a pub. You've got to drive everywhere.
Good point, yeah. Build your own. Pub, not shop.
Yeah.
I love that's the first thing you said to Scott Adkins when Ollie was interviewing Scott Adkins a few weeks ago. And the first thing he said to me was, "It's a lovely house, but you haven't got a pub nearby, have you?" I said, "I'm not sure that's a priority for Scott Adkins."
He did. He did. Thankfully, he did say there's one man down the road. I was like, okay, that's fine. And we're ending with a big Terminator theme being Hans Zimmerfied by Lombarth. So, final thoughts on this.
Yeah, final thoughts. What are they?
Is it the worst Terminator film?
No, I really hope that anyone who is still listening after all this time isn't upset that we've just been complaining and pointing out issues, because I've done it, in my case anyway, with goodness in my heart. I've enjoyed this film. I don't think it's a terrible film by any means. I think it's ridiculous for a Terminator film. There's so many decisions that don't make any sense. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it more than 3 and 4. 6, I can't remember, so we'll see next time. But yeah, it's just fine.
I think it's as a Terminator fan, and like keeping things consistent with tone and the look. It has many annoying parts to it, and I think retreading Terminator 1 should never do that. But it does have some fun moments. There's no denying. It's silly, and has some kind of neat little moments, but it is fundamentally flawed. If I had the choice between watching this or Terminator 3, I'd probably watch Terminator 3 because it's shorter.
Yeah, there is that. It's shot on film as well. It's now I've said that.
And the casting in this really annoys me. And it's like, no, it's like again, Emilia Clarke is like a child pretending to be Sarah Connor.
But is she worse than the John Connor in 3 though? Because
Eric Stahl, was it? I can't remember his name. But
Nick Stahl.
Nick Stahl, sorry, yeah. Look at this song at the end. Oh God, I'm turning that song down, so I don't have to listen to it. And fucking bloody yeah.
Oh my God, yeah. Oh.
It's not as good as Guns N' Roses, is it?
What the hell was that? Who decided that needed to be there?
This has got more problems than the other ones.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Despite, you could say it's because of the action. There's a lot of it, and it's very consistent throughout. It's not poorly executed, I don't think. It's very heavy CG. Everything is CG, pretty much. So you are watching a very expensive video game sequence, right? That's kind of more photorealistic. But it's Arnie's in it. He's having fun. And that's what kind of makes it work a little smidge, because Arnie's in it, and he's doing what he does best, And the score isn't terrible, But I think Salvation, shot on film, it has loads of miniatures in it, loads of practical in-camera stuff. It's a better looking movie. It's a better made film. It's a bit po-faced and up its arse. It's too serious. It doesn't have any humour to it. But then it's got Michael Ironside in it, Rob. You know what I mean?
That's true, yeah.
Losing his temper.
Not very much, but yeah.
And Anton Yelchin, great Carl Reese. I mean, if he didn't die, he could have been in this, you know what I mean? Maybe he hadn't died at that point when they did this one. I don't know. I can't remember when he had passed away. But okay, this is difficult to say. Objectively, this isn't the worst one. I think probably Terminator 3 is, but subjectively, I think this is the worst one.
Yeah, I think that there are definitely more things wrong with it. There are definitely more problems by some margin.
Yeah,
but there's probably also more that I like as well. Arnold, Lee Byung-hun, I think, is absolutely brilliant, and I wish he was in it a lot more.
Yeah,
and there are individual scenes and set pieces that really work. I think that are more memorable to me anyway than anything in 3 and probably even 4 actually.
Yeah, this feels a bit more like a proper film, right, compared to 3, where 3 is an expensive TV movie. because it is like that. It's shot like it's so like uninspired of how it's shot, and until you get to like a second unit sequence where they got their good stunt guys to stunt team to shoot these amazing action sequences, like with the big chase. You know that is basically tries to one up T2. But outside of that, it's very TV movie like, and this one it does feel like a big movie. It's got a lot of ideas crammed into it. It just becomes so convoluted with the time travel process and trying to go off in different timelines, and sets up things that are never explained because they intended to make a sequel, but it's fool's errand. I hate when filmmakers do this. We're going to make a trilogy. Well, decide on that once the first one's successful. Don't go out the gate with this trilogy idea.
Exactly.
And these ideas you're going to really kind of build upon, you're going to follow up through sequels. Thus, the first film won't make much sense, but don't worry, we'll finish it off in a sequel. But oh no, the film didn't make enough money, we're not going to do that. So again, it becomes this weird offshoot movie that doesn't feel connected to the other ones anymore. And Dark Fate tries to bring that back. It ignores 2, 3, 4, and 5. No, 2, 3. Sorry.
3, 4, and 5.
Yeah. So it just goes from 1, 2 onwards.
If you're going to do it, if you're going to structure it like that, make a TV series.
Yeah, which they did do, didn't they? And they cancelled after 2 seasons.
Which was probably better than this, if I remember rightly.
I think most people, preferred it.
Oh, I've just looked straight at my old producer. I'd missed his name. My old producer, Matthew Bristow, is exec producer on this.
There you go. Shout out to Matthew. But yeah, again, it's ultimately is a really convoluted fan movie. You know.
Yeah, that's a convoluted fan movie. I think is the perfect description.
That should be on the poster, shouldn't it?
Oliver Harper, convoluted fan movie.
Oh yeah, bit of a waste of money. And again, these Terminator films, they pay a lot for the license and they spend a lot trying to make it, and it always hits a certain amount of money, but they always spend too much. Make them smaller budgeted, smaller movies, 50 million, 80 million. That's it, max. Doesn't have to be T2 every time.
Yeah, I think you're right, because as well, then you've just got so much less to answer to.
Yeah,
you're going to get more freedom, less pressure, there's less money in play.
Exactly, man. Exactly. Well, folks, that's the end of the commentary. Hope you enjoyed it. Me and Rob will be back now. Okay, before we'll continue with the franchise commentaries, right? So we could do Prometheus next, or the remake of RoboCop. What do you think?
Well, it's Sophie's choice, isn't it? Jesus.
We don't have to do the remake of RoboCop.
We
can just pretend it never exists.
That's fine by me. Let's pretend it doesn't exist. It's what I do every day.
So we'll probably go straight to Prometheus, which I don't know if you enjoyed that film or not, Rob. I suppose I think you had some complaints last time I spoke to you about it.
Yeah, no, yeah, I rewatched it a couple of years ago and just thought it was fine, as I remember rightly. I think it's the one after it. I think it's Covenant that I wasn't a big fan of, but yeah, Prometheus has got some good stuff.
Okay, well, folks, it's Prometheus next time. Take care of yourselves, and goodbye for now.